Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Coming to you from Off the Grid, January 5th, 2017. Tell you, a big part of living off grid is having a strong spirit. So we're going to talk about the difference, in my opinion, between genuine spiritual concepts and teachings and the mainstream New Age movement. I think it's a big mistake for people that say they're on the spiritual path to identify with New Age. I'm going to tell you right now at the beginning of the video, like I do most, I don't believe that it's New Age to participate in meditation or prayer or self-betterment. I believe that the energy fields, also known as auras, around our human body, I believe we need to protect those things. Just like our Earth's protective magnetic field, which I wrote an 8-page article about the solar flares and the Earth's weekend magnetic field, as above, so below. It's a big part of the commentary on my channel. I have noticed, since I was a child, however, in your world, this disinformation and the inverted spiritual teachings that I firmly believe to be the work of the archons. Now, I remember talking to people about the archons a couple years ago, and in the mainstream New Age movement, they were mentioned far less, because in reality, I believe a lot of those spirits that people are tapping into are not honest or legitimate or benevolent beings. And looking at the recent writings, you can see my most recent video. In the New Age movement, there are disinformation sources saying that the archons have been moved off planet. Well, I thought there was denial about the archons a few years ago. A lot of people didn't know the term. Well, what's that? That's weird. Well, now people are waking up, and they're waking up to their own need to protect themselves, their mind, body, and spirit, that they should have a strong mind, body, and spirit. These are not New Age teachings. These are spiritual concepts that have been hijacked and inverted by the mainstream New Age movement, including understandings of things like karma. Tell you what, you're not dealing with a spiritual person at any time if they say their karma caused that. I believe that it's a spiritual concept to say even if their karma caused that, we should try to help those people anyways. I believe that's a spiritual concept. I believe that's based in love. And I don't believe it's love when people use their spiritual, what they believe are understandings, which are really inverted truths, as an excuse to do nothing and to put themselves above others. So when you're dealing with genuine spiritual concepts and teachings, you're dealing with spirit and the concept of a soul. With the New Age, you're dealing with a DNA upgrade constantly. DNA upgrade. So according to the Nag Hammadi, we are in a way clones of the archons, but we have spirit. So the body is of the material world, which in some cases they control. And even Eve Lorgan writes in The Love Bite about alien interference. You can even call it archonic interference in human relationships. So the hardware can be tampered with. People hear voices in the head. They see bright lights. They believe that they are being given visions. The hardware is vulnerable to hack. This teaching does not exist in the mainstream New Age movement. In fact, people that warn about things like this are usually scoffed at and scorned. There's something very disturbing that I've seen in today's New Age women, and it's something that I call white woman supremacy. And I'm noticing an overlap between the white genocide hysteria and the New Age movement, and New Age people like Linda West, who recently trolled me, attacked me, because I talked about how our spiritual development and human relationships are suffering from the technological addiction. And not only was she clearly not familiar with my genetic background, but by just going into some rant about white women dating brown men, and we need to stop it. See, when I hear people obsessed about people like me being born, because I am half Middle Eastern, half of European background. At the same time, my mother was deeply involved in the New Age movement. So not only did I get to learn about this white genocide meme and how it's basically describing myself and how hateful that is, how there are literal dovetails to the New Age movement and the obsessions with regards to the DNA upgrade. What I'm interpreting is a lack of heartfelt empathy and love in our culture towards those that in a lot of ways have been judged as being demon seed or Babylonian seed. There are even those that talked about the archons on the Christian right end of things that are describing the archon workings in our world being multiculturalism. There are even some people that are finding this channel that are brainwashed by the same bullshit. And they let me know that through the comment section periodically. So I'm talking literally to white supremacists in this video series and discussing the archonic influence in our world and how it can be seen through this white genocide hysteria. And I've also mentioned, for the few of you that take the time to look, how kind is it for you to treat me in that manner when all I've done is create content? I have like nearly 4,000 videos, and they range from off the grid to discussing solar flares, i.e. the real light, not galactic center. And so I have a lot of, we're going to talk about this also in this video. Is it really unspiritual if you're able to perceive a threat coming to the population? And you're able to see how the current ways in which people are afraid are not the real ways in which they should be concerned. I don't think people should be living in fear of China or World War III. They should be prepared for the plot to be very different than what they've been fed. And so I believe that something is being prepared for our country. I believe they are getting ready for something in the 2025 period. And I see how the New Age community is recreating the ascension predictions, at least people like Alfred Weber. And as recently as the last week, there was a memo that went out. A lot of people picked it up. Again, they're calling the Anunnaki, the so-called gods, if you will, that created us, benevolent. They're basically the actual entities that are believed to be tied in with the archons to begin with are now the good guys who are removing the counterfeit archons, or those they call the archons, from the planets. Who are they talking about? Who are they talking about when they say the archons have been taken off planet? A couple years ago, they actually said the reptilians were taken off planet. Now, a couple years ago, the term archon was not heavily researched or sought out. In fact, the Nagamati has only been translated into English for less than 100 years. It was discovered in 45. Then there was that period in 1947 where another scholar got his hands on the Nagamati. You know, they have their own Garden of Eden interpretation. You know, the Nagamati, the God of the Old Testament in the Quran and the Torah, that is an archon. That is the demiurge. That is the God of this world. That is the fallen God. So it's not a surprise to me that there are so many fallen goddesses that are promoting white woman supremacy. How do you do that? You tell someone who's a male, whose DNA doesn't seem upgraded as yours, you're being negative. That's bullshit. You're being controlled by the archons. Trying to warn us about this stuff. Trying to tell us to have discernment with regards to this. Who are you? Where did you come from? Now, I know how my mother treated me. I know there's a lot of anger that she carried forward due to however my father treated her and things that are beyond my control. You know, we have no control over who had sex with who back in whoever, Timbuktu. People are responsible, though, for how they treat each other and their children. Throughout my adulthood, as I got into outside the box TV, and I even had people like David Icke on my show and others, I wanted my mom to say, you know what, Alex, I had no idea that you would grow up and be someone that would be sharing so many spiritual teachings with so many people around the world. Kudos. Instead, there was anger, there was spite, there was even the statements as recently as 2010, what's your problem with Lady Gaga? And now a lot of you by now are able to see the satanic imagery and a lot of the blood ritual sacrifice. So to be put down by someone throughout your whole life into your adulthood, there's a reason why I do not have communication with this individual anymore, nor my abusive father. I find it interesting that my soul picked two bloodlines that seem to have their own archonic influence regarding just anger and control. And that's not to put them down. Being human and being in the physical world and certain cultural conditioning, not genetic disposition necessarily, but cultural conditioning that may work, though, in some cases on some humans whose ancestors have not been on the earth long enough. Other ancestors that have been on the earth long enough, in some ways, they seem different. But I have never reached a conclusion of one group being better than the other or one being worse than the other, because I've seen mass media mind control or mass mind control in every group. And what I saw was, I saw this multicultural human that's being called white genocide by your world become the only speaker on the other side of my family, and see nothing but vile and yes men and women and disrespect, hatred, resentment. I can feel it. Some of you would even call it a psychic attack. See, I was able to just slide back and just not even worry about it. There's a lot of things that I don't worry about that I've seen New Agers worry about, because I genuinely have faith in the Creator. And I've actually seen people show me jealousy, anger, and distrust and talk to me like I'm a liar when I've talked about the divine intervention that's taken place in my life. It's like I'm making it up. So, white woman supremacy is not limited to the New Age movement, but it's an important component of it. There are some people that have confused their beauty with pleasure. There are many people that have confused praise and men liking them and showering them with gifts and them being very successful with their readings, people throwing money at them because of the power of suggestion. You know, it's just like when people go to a strip club, for example, for those that do, most of the time they'd rather see a woman than a man, even if they're women. There's something in our cellular memory that worships the physical female is actually causing a lot of imbalances in our world. So this isn't just about the sex industry or the work industry, it's actually about the so-called spiritual communities. So a lot of the New Age stuff is based on treating these women like goddesses and calling them goddesses and not recognizing the sacred masculine in our world. In fact, putting it down and going as far as to go anything from love and light, to be anything but that. But to go, you're trying to make it happen. I remember that Portland woman telling me that in 2010. I was telling her this is all moving towards a conflict, and I think they want to hurt Americans. And yet you told me I'm being negative, and yet your world and people around you have gotten on board demonizing women that have had sex or babies with less white men. You had the gall to tell me for years that I wasn't being spiritual, and now there are people amongst you and actually in your crowds. And are you holding them accountable? If, say, you identify with New Age, when have you ever written a blog or made a video about millions of dead people in the East? You don't like it when I say the word Afghanistan. Some of you would have said so by now that you realize something wrong is happening over there. And it isn't about the U.S. government bringing rights to women. There's something else going on. Something is going on. And millions of people shouldn't just be dying like that, and the Pentagon doesn't see that's satanic. And the karmic consequences of a government involved in a genocide, it's dirty, it's messy, and you have white slavery. There is no allowance in this world for you to allow the enslavement of other people and to assume that it will never happen to you, and then to go forward and attack the people that are warning you. That's sick. So I've given you good information, and I actually feel secure in my world. And even if I were to be killed, oh, what's that guy's last name? Oh, he comes from them. That line, Babylonian. Kill it. Kill it. Fine, so be it. If that is to be, it's God's will. But I believe there's more work for me to do. And I've seen and felt your anger and your lack of love, not only for my mother, but many of the women of today's particular generation that have been brainwashed and with the voices in the head, and to be even affected in their dream state. If they know me, and I've been given bits of information from various people about dream invasions, in which people have been psychically attacked to not be my friend, or threatened, or given bad vibes by something in a dream. And what I've realized is, when a lot of these women allow themselves to get courted with these entities that they think are their archangels, they really act like a handler. Because what a lot of these women don't understand is that there's something considered valuable about their feminine essence, right? And so those entities want to court up with them and use them for particular things, or siphon their energy. It's as simple as siphoning their energy through getting them to open up their own portals, if you will. So we do have energy centers and chakras, and I have a number of guided meditations regarding grounding, okay, running earth and cosmic energy, clearing out the head. I also think that there are people that are far more interested in manifesting for themselves instead of thinking about others. Why is it that so many in the so-called spiritual New Age community are so judgmental with regards to what I'm discussing with you regarding millions dead? It is sick to say that the Afghan people and others, that it's their karma, without realizing how women are suffering even more so today, without realizing how there's corruption in your own society that has aided ISIS and other groups through the money. Some of you have chosen to just not focus on the negative in your eyes, so you have maintained complete ignorance as to what's going on, in particular the archonic influence over your world. I know there's going to be some jokes about slipping. I would just simply encourage the audience to find humor in something else. You know what? A lot of people in America aren't even talking about videos like this because the social persecution is great. I have met very few women in my life, for example, that have been open to some of these things. Oh, some of them have been on the internet. It's also dangerous for me to get close to people that have serious afflictions because they can easily turn on you unless they completely clear themselves. So I decided long ago that I would continue talking about these things even if they're unpopular, to the religious community, to the atheist community, and to the New Age community, and they will all see me as the bad man. Not to mention have a little bit of Babylonian seed, which you are now programmed to see as evil and not worthy of, say if I was dying in the street of cold. Did I learn in Portland, Oregon, that your people would leave me in the street and judge me because of the things that I was exposing locally? Being very critical of the city's sex trafficking problem and how that indicated a city with major problems, not an enlightened progressive city, but a city with skeletons in its closet. So I learned a lot from my upbringing. I learned a lot from living in the Portland, Oregon area, which is a hotbed for a lot of this stuff. And I saw the rejection. I also mentioned the dream invasions. And some people were, were getting, oh, he's with someone else, he's married, like really like bizarre, off the wall. You can't trust this man. And the cruelty. And how many years, though, also seeing spirit lift me up and protect me in a lot of different circumstances. There are major differences between being on the spiritual path and getting involved in the New Age teachings. And so through my experiences, which I'm sharing with you, I'm helping a lot. I'm seeing a lot of people also show no feeling whatsoever. So part of me feels like I'm directly talking to almost the reptilian race, to be honest with you. The number of you that claim to be supporters, and I know there's not a lot, perhaps watching this video, but for example, the past videos regarding white genocide, that my feelings aren't even considered. The fact that people would think that this is a conscious shift in consciousness, where my kind is being called white genocide in a virus. You call this a shift in consciousness. You think I'm out of line? Really? I'm not out of line. And I'm not out of line by sharing with you my intuitive feelings that danger is coming to the West Coast, especially to women, and especially to those that create negative karma for themselves. And this whole aliens are saving you bullshit is like MK Ultra. It's the opposite of spiritual teachings. You have to save yourself. The aliens averted this disaster. The aliens stopped this from happening. Putin is an ascended master. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that you're unable to see all this propaganda and disinformation? Really? Why? I'm going to conclude now by encouraging that people consider meditation. And they don't have to be in a group. And this is not about connecting with an alien being. People should, on a regular basis, even as they're walking, like I am now, as many of you are going to walk later and get some coffee somewhere in the city, to ground yourself to the center of the earth and to understand that there is a connection between this and your Earth's, your body's magnetic field. Protecting your psyche, protecting here, protecting your body, protecting your chakras. See, a lot of you have, ironically, gotten involved in learning about chakras and energy centers, but not really about protecting them, and not really about, decoding things that have attached to you through your willingness. See, when you have people that are tapped into schools of thought saying that the Anunnaki are coming to use military ET wave beam technology to take out the archons, you're dealing with entities as well as human hosts that are writing that stuff that are fucking with you. That if anything, they're trying to create archon cords with you by getting you to think about the Anunnaki or your rulers in a positive way. There's something about this type of blind trust that's taught by the Stephen Greers of the world, the James Gillilands of the world, who in a recent interview actually talks about going up in the spaceship. Now, so it's not just about white woman supremacy. Notice how a guy like James Gilliland and others that are in the New Age, they have this type of look that appeals to these tribal women. And I know Deepak Chopra, of Indian background, is well received, but he's very much on the New Age side as well. So it's not really racial. Because I've seen in Portland, there are other minorities that have mystical capabilities and talents because of their genetics. And it's like, I believe that the entities in a lot of these New Age circles want to redirect their energy and focus to be used by them, to be vessels for them, to be receivers, transmitter receivers, but to be receivers of the Archon agenda disinformation because they're good receivers. Some people have amazing talents. And it was also said to me by more, because I do believe in psychic potential, that the Archons were angry that I never kowtowed or bow down to my mother and what they were grooming me for in the 1980s. I was rebelling against that, so they chose to punish me later on in life. And as I look at my life story, as I look at how my mother started having aspects of her memory erased, I mean, there could be certain genetic things, but it's almost as if she was being targeted then, after the fact, for bringing me into the world once I became an activist and started Outside the Box TV. Then they started going, well, who brought you here? And then I saw both my mother and my father in the same period in time get additionally cold. And it was after I got involved in outreach and becoming the only public speaker, for example, on either side of the family. And so I am standing face of the current hatred in your society, and many of you are in denial. Many of you were in denial years ago when I told and confided in some female friends, people are really starting to look at me strange with their eyes bugged out. Like, oh no, they think you're beautiful. And it's like, now you're still in denial and there are people in your midst. So when Linda West came on my page and starts like shrieking about we need to be more concerned about women being propagandized to be with brown men or Muslim men, that is an Alex Jones Archon satanic talking point. That's not the truth. And there are aspects of the media, though, that will do certain things to piss people off, like the black guy and the white girl. I'm aware of all that, and other things I'm not getting into in this video. Why not understand what's going on there, and why continue to blame people that are of mixed race, that have no power over the partners that their parents picked? And how is this not trying to control women, a suppressant of the feminine, when you have Linda West, Morning Mayan on YouTube, talking shit about other white women that pick darker skinned men, and then hurting people that were born different? So a lot of you have showed me no compassion in my entire lifetime, and and I'm speaking to a particular demographic. Some of you that are watching are getting confused when I say the word you. This video obviously was made by members for members of the New Age community. My audience is going to watch it, but I really want those of you that are deeply involved in this external saviorship theology to realize that there is something about grounding, meditation, tapping into your own thoughts. It's just like detoxing from drugs and alcohol. I think honestly, the main thing that a lot of you need to do is to clear yourself of the cords, first and foremost. And some of you realize something's going on, and like Michelle Walling, who like is fully responsible for her cords, and she started talking about along with others, some people are getting really attacked in the New Age movement in recent years, and they're looking for a scapegoat, but they won't take accountability for the things that they have opened themselves up to in recent years. And they certainly are not open to some of my ideas that a lot of these major cities are energy harvesting centers. They're not beautiful, loving places where the ascension is going to take place. They're places where their energy is being siphoned through the pain, through the suffering, by being on the radar, but not realizing that they are that their energy that they are excreting is visible to the entities that feed on it. So I'm Alex Ansari. It is January 5th, 2017. I think I'm going to, at least for the foreseeable future, continue talking about these topics and much more. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll continue to discuss my Gnostic perspective on what's going on, as well as discussing meditation. And also catch my nightly newscast, where I actually cover things going on in the world and focus on that and that alone. And so I take time to discuss my spiritual truth, and I take time to actually look at what's going on in the world. And we live in a world where a lot of people do one or the other. They don't try to do both. And usually they'll do one and they'll put down people into the other. Usually you don't have people like me in the world. Why not subscribe today?